and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, and happy Saturday wherever you are. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. I want to welcome all of you to Focus on Liberia in this special edition. This is a live debate involving Mr. George Preston Lobbo, representing the Unity Party, and aspirant Joseph Newman Boakai, and Assistant Minister Esiaka Sherif, representing the CDC, and President George Weah. I want to welcome my debaters tonight. First, we want to welcome Mr. George Preston Sir Lobbo. I always love to include a Sir name. Sir, are you there?
You can have Dennis.
Welcome to the show, George. How's your Saturday?
Mr. Jah, I want to say thank you once again. It's an honor to be here this morning and to share the stage with my dear brother, Minister Sherif. It's good to have an employee of the CDC government, not only an employee, but a government official, as we engage, especially for those of us who are interested in speaking to the governance of the state and the well-being of our people. I want to also take this time to welcome Liberians who have tuned in. I look forward to a great conversation, but I want to also set the stage as we move forward. I look forward to a conversation, one that will be supported with data, especially now that we have a government official here, one that will be driven based on facts, not based on emotions and sentiments. We understand that it is a political season, but we look forward to the government, to a representative of the government now being able to explain to us what the government has done and how it is doing it and what she plans to do. So I look forward to the engagement.
Thank you. Let me welcome Minister Esiaka Sherif. Minister Sherif, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here on your platform for the second time, but with you particularly for the first time. It's a pleasure to be here, and as we set the stage for the 2023 election, these sorts of interactions are very much healthy for the growth and development of our country. And I hope that while we through this civil interaction, Mr. Lobbo will exhibit all of the accompanying attitude, that such a show accords, and such that the government will always be the government, and we're here. We are going to give the necessary information to our people, so that they can elect us for a second term. And Judge Lobbo is going to make his case for Joe Boakai. I'm going to make my case for the president, and at the end of the day, I think we can synchronize everything. People can synchronize everything and see who best they can give their power to now that they have the power this time.
Thank you so much. I want to welcome our viewers across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia, and this is a debate between Mr. George Preston Lobbo and Minister Esiaka Sherif. And I want to open this by saying, in your opening, gentlemen, what I want you to discuss is elections 2023 is coming, and every election is a referendum on the incumbent. So I want to start with Mr. Esiaka Sherif to tell me what has been the accomplishment. Mr. President Weah has been in power for almost 5 years now. What has been his accomplishment? What has he done that Liberians, including myself, should give him a second term? What will you tell us that why should Liberians trust President Weah at this point in our history to re-elect him come 2023 October?
It's a pleasure again. That's a very good question, and we've been in power for the last, for 5 years now. Pretty going to 6 years, And I think the president of Liberia, George Weah, has done enormously well to get the second term mandate of the people. If you look at all sectors of the country, the president has been able to touch all sectors of the country. I mean, beginning with health, education, agriculture, infrastructure development, a lot of areas. Peace and security of the country, uh, 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 economy. The president, the government has done assiduously well in those areas, And so, to name a few, for example, we met. The kind of economy we met was very terrible, as created by George Lobbo and his government from the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf period. We took over that time. The exchange rate was very, very high, very, very horrible. Purchasing power of people, was very, very bad. And from now, I think we have stabilized the economy to some extent. Are we where we want to be? I don't think so. We are where we want to be. But are we where we used to be when we took this, our government? No, we are not where we used to be. And so if you go to infrastructure, if you go across the country, there are road construction everywhere. You go to Nimba, you go to Grand Jide, you go to Grand Cru, the Southeast, in fact, Lofa County, Grand Kipma County now, road construction is all over the country, including Montserrat County. We are rehabilitating roads as well in Montserrat County. We have built hospitals in terms of the health sector. We have built hospitals, we have built clinics. For example, the Emory Hospital that will soon be dedicated by the president, I think in January or February of next year, a brand new Emory Hospital. We have 100 called the Emory Hospital, built by the Qataris, the guys from Qatar. We've also been able to build over 100 bedroom hospital in Riverside County. We built a military hospital for the first time in the history of the country. If you go, in terms of sports and entertainment, the Invincible Sports Park, and there is another park being built at the PSP area, which is probably the most beautiful one of all of any park, around the country that you can find. And if we talk about security, I think the security situation, yes, the government of George Lobo could not put together a vibrant security sector together, especially when we had the presence of the international community, over 15,000 troops in Liberia at the time, and they like that. Right now, 5 years now, Liberian security has been in the hands of the government itself. We have provided security for our people under George Lobo's government. It was the international community that have provided security with over 15,000 troops from over 30 countries that were in Liberia representing the United Nations. But since they left the country, we have been able to provide national security in terms of peace and reconciliation. We are now on top of that game, yes. But I think we are considerably somewhere that is appreciable. And as we gear up for 2023 election next year, that's why the people are bracing to even re-nominate the president to run for a second term, and they are willing to vote for him come 2023, so that he can continue with his projects he has started 4 or 5 years ago to end it. They are prepared to give him 12 years.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Sherry. Let me call on Mr. George Preston Lobo. George, VP Boakai was just in office for 12 years, and he's been in the opposition now. Why should Liberians trust Joseph Newman Boakai to hand over power back to him, since he was there 12 years ago? And what has he demonstrated that we can trust him to do so?
So I think it's a brilliant question, and that is why we are the most formidable and remain Liberia's best alternative to regain state power. Mr. Ja, I find it so humiliating that a representative of the government will sit here today on such a public forum, will make statements that he has no understanding of. I find it laughable that a government official will sit here and will speak to national issues, yet will not specify, will not provide data, will not provide any factual basis around his argument. Mr. Jai, I hope you do have the graph that I sent you. I sent you a graph one time, if you recall, where it shows the national poverty rate, it shows inflation rate. I think if you put that, if you do have it, I think it will be important for this discussion, because that can sum up Minister Sherif's statements he just made. I want Liberians to see first, then we can come back to it. And just for the record, that data was pulled from the World Bank Outlook report in 2019. And the reason why I always like to refer to data, because the numbers don't lie. CDC came to power based on lies, and it is normal. That is what they've continued. But before I begin, let me say today marks 39 days since President George Weah neglected his duties as president. Since President Weah abandoned the Liberian people in the midst of extreme poverty. Today marks 39 days since the President of the Republic of Liberia, a man chosen to lead the affairs of the state, left the country and on his lavish, reckless travels around the world. Having said that, I find it laughable to hear the minister say,
Mr. Lobbo, please, before I don't want to interrupt. Let's go straight into the question about.
But the question I'm responding to.
You will have chance to rebut.
Let me respond to it. Great. So here's why we are best suited to be the next ruling party. Mr. Jai, in 2006, the Unity Party, led by Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Joseph Newman Boakai, inherited Liberia. Mr. Jai, the records are clear. Minister Sherif, you may not know, the national poverty rate of Liberia was 68.4% when we came to power. When we came to power, Minister Sherif, we inherited a national reserve of $6.5 million in 2006. Minister Sherif, when we came to power, we inherited a national budget of $80 million. You want to speak of roads today? Minister Sherif, we can't even outline, because it will require the entire day for us to articulate our accomplishment. Infrastructure, you're brave to talk about infrastructure. We made Liberia that was referred to as a complete failed state. Many people will say for the Liberian mentor, Liberia was in a graveyard. We had to wake the country up. Minister Sherif, here's why we are best suited to be the next ruling party. We did not complain. Never did you hear us say, we blame the Chancellor government. We blame the Judy Bryant government. Our government took responsibility. On our leadership, Minister Sherif, we ensured we raised civil servant salary by more than 150%. Under our leadership, Minister Sherif, we made Liberia GDP in the negative. When we left power, we averaged a growth rate of over 5.5%, Minister Sherif. Even after the Ebola pandemic, we managed to keep a 3.some% GDP growth. Here's why we are best suited. When we left power and gave the country to the CDC in 2018, Minister Sherif, the national poverty rate, we had decreased it from 68% to 50%. When we left power, Minister Sherif, we gave your government a national reserve of $154.8 million. When we gave you government, Minister Sherif, in 2018, we gave you a country of a national budget of $526 million. Minister Sherif, we left for you over 650 paved kilometers of road. We secured for you $280 million to pave the road from Ganta to Zweju. We also, again, Minister Sherif, in 2017, President George Weah, then candidate, with President Sirleaf, attended the groundbreaking ceremony for the beginning of the construction from Banga to Menikoma, the first phase, the Salaye Road. And for you to sit there today and talk about we building roads, Minister Sherif, I will ask that as we proceed during this discussion, that you do the research as you speak to these issues. We expect officials of government to have the facts, to have the clear understanding of the issue. But here's how we end on this note, Dennis, why we should be. Liberians' life was far better during our 12 years reign than the CDC. And just this, when we gave you the country, Minister Sherif, a cup of rice was $20 US, 20 Liberian dollars. The exchange rate you spoke of today was 130 Liberian dollars to $1 US. Inflation was at 12.9%. You tell me what you did with it. So these excuses must be based on facts. And I look forward to the government, to the minister, delivering on the issues and providing substance around the conversation. I so submit.
Thank you. And gentlemen, I want you to please, I will give you 1 minute each now for rebuttal. But when I ask a question, I want you to go into it. And because I want to get the meat. I'm all about the meat. I'm a carnivore. All right. So, Mr. Sharif, I give you a minute or two to respond to George.
Yes, I think the audience are listening, it's a pity for my brother George Lobbo to not even know the difference between rebuttal and making an argument. Okay, he said, to start with the latter, he said when he left power, a cup of rice was $20, 20 Liberian dollars. That's a blatant lie. Mr. George Lobbo left power with the cup of rice between $40 to $45. And I mean, why would he come? This is a guy who wants to be on the right-hand side of Boakai. If Boakai were to become president, which is not going to happen, this is a guy who wants to be on the right-hand side of Boakai, leading him he whispered in the old man's ear when the old man went to America, who could not even answer a question in public, and whispering in the old man's ear to tell him to say. He talked about infrastructure, and look, let me tell you something, Mr. Jah, and let me tell the public something. We have built more kilometers of road in 5 years than George Lobbo's government did in their first 5 years. That is not debatable. We have built over 400.6 kilometers of road. That's a primary road. Secondary road, we have rehabilitated over 235 kilometers of secondary road since we took over. George Lobbo spent 12 years in power with his government. They could not even be able, in the 12 years, they were not able to pave 600 kilometers of road combined. This is a pity. We have already done more than 400, imagine. So if you gave us, in the next 1 year of our administration to make it the first 6 years, we will have completed over 500 kilometers of road. That is next year, 2023. And if the Liberian people are going to give us another 6 years, which I believe they're going to do, we're going to pave over 1,500 kilometers of road combined in our first and second terms. So George Lobbo's administration could not do 600 kilometers of road in their first and second terms combined. He talked about when they took over the left, when we were leaving, $250 million in road construction resources with the government of Liberia. That is a blatant lie. They did not leave a cent. They did not leave a cent. What they did a lot of how do you call it? They did a lot of planning, and they did a lot of paperwork. They did not secure funding for the construction of any road. We came, we secured all of the fundings. We did everything. Now roads are all over the country. Go between Ganta and Saniquali. Go between Ganta and Saklepi. Go during the road from Zredru to Fishtown. Look, this government is constructing roads all across the country. Right now, go on the Medina to Rabosport Road. It's ongoing. Montserrado County, we are building a lot of roads. And look, this guy will come and sit on this platform and lie to the people because he want to lie his way back to power for them to continue their state loot that they did not end in 2018, for which they were booted out. So it's a pity. It's a pity, yes.
Mr. Sherry, let's watch it. Let's get away from words like liar, because I don't want it to get too tense here. But how do we know how much the Weah government met in the coffers? How much was it? And how do we know if we did not get any report or assessment to tell us that, hey, this is what we are operating with, this is what we met? So can you tell us how much?
And that is the misconception, Mr. Jah.
Okay.
There is a report. The government of Liberia under George Weah met $150 million in our reserve. Yes, just said that. He's right. And we met 7 million, just 7 million US dollars in government's operational account, the consolidated account, which could not pay for even 1 month. When we took over the government, we could not pay civil servants for the first month of January because we met just 7 million in the consolidated account, and then 514 million Liberian dollars in the consolidated account also. So if you consummate the two, that is about 14.9 million US dollars, which could not pay civil servants for the first January for the first month of our administration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me go to George for his rebuttal.
Why it is true I came here today to engage a government official. Dennis, I refer to this as a discussion and not a debate. Again, the criteria for a debate, I think this discussion will not meet a debate. And I will say this for the audience. And here's why. I expected Minister Sharif to really come prepared, having the facts and being able to make the case. But from what he's saying, I will continue to provide the information an employee of the government does not have. Minister Sharif, I'm glad you agreed that what I said was correct. You guys met 154. I'll give you the exact number since you don't have it. It was 154.8 million, Minister Sharif. Again, you can't blame me because you did not do your homework or do not have the information. That's not my responsibility. But Mr. Jah, the United Party government, I told you, we paved over 650 kilometers of road, including the ones we resurfaced. If Minister Sharif's assertions are factual, that they have paved over 406 kilometers of road, let me take what we paved and let him state for us what they have paved. So the UP government paved from Rayleigh to Ganta. The UP government paved from Fishtown to Harper. The United Party government began the second phase from Fishtown to River G at the cost of $108 million, Mr. Jah.
Fishtown is in River G. You said Fishtown to River G.
The United Party government paved from Kakata to Beaumont at the cost of $35 million. The UP government paved from Iyerebe Junction straight to Buchanan. The United Party government resurfaced all the major roads in Monrovia. We can start with the Kesari Boulevard, the SKD Boulevard, the entire road from Inter all the way to Rayleigh, the bypasses, the Poly Academy Road. So let's just be factual for once. I want the minister to tell us the ones they paved. The United Party government of Madam Saliv and Joseph Boakai in December of 2017, we have that famous picture where the groundbreaking ceremony took place for the first phase of Banga to Salala, rather. So Minister Jah, if Minister Sharif would tell us that they came in and secured funding, Minister Sharif, the road from Ganta to Yekepa, that project began in 2015. For Christ in heaven's sake, do the audience justice. That road was a $47 million agreement we signed with the Senegalese company. And let me tell you, the UP government contribution was 10 million. 37 million came as part of the social corporate responsibility component from the ArcelorMittal agreement. We also secured the funding from Sanikole to Lokwatu from the African Development Bank. What I expect from you as a government official to be doing here is to state for us the roles that you have been able to go out and secure serious funding for, not the ones you met. Because
right.
Indeed, if you continue to say what you're saying, I don't want to be displayed sending Dennis Jah the facts on the rules.
All right, hold on there, Judge. Let Mr. Sharif answer that question.
No, I'm not asking you. No, let me finish rhetorical. I didn't ask him.
Hold on, Judge. Hold on, Judge. Okay. Let's take us. I want us to put the road business behind us. And you guys keep saying kilometer. You're like, bro, we use miles, but you're changing everything. But yeah. All right. So since we talk highlighting roads, let's talk a little bit about the roads. Mr. Sharif, Mr. Lobbo stated about the roads that the United Party government paved. So from Red Light to Ganta, he said, Fishtown to Harper, Kakata to Buchanan, EAW to Buchanan, Ganta to Yokepa. So tell us, you can dispute that or tell us what the Weah government pays as opposed to what he said, and then we can compare the notes and do the calculation.
First of all, there is no road from Kakata to Buchanan. There is no corridor from Kakata to Buchanan. Just Lobbo is there is no corridor from Kakata to Buchanan that is paved.
Correction, I said Kakata to
Lobbo.
I said EAW junction to Buchanan.
EAW to Buchanan. Yeah, let's talk about your roads. Talk about the ones that the CDC paid. Go ahead.
No, I'm coming. Just Lobbo is the deception here. From Kakata to Bongman is not paved. If you call anybody right now in Liberia to ask them, from Kakata to Buchanan, from Kakata to Bongman's road is not paved. There is no road paved on Kesali Boulevard. Let the man stop deceiving the people. These are imaginary things he's talking about. There's no paved road on Kesali Boulevard. Why would George Lobbo come and sit on this platform and deceive the Liberian people? Right? The road from Ganta to Saniqually, which he's talking about $47 million, where the government should have contributed $10 million, the one ArcelorMittal should have contributed. They took that money. They took the money for ArcelorMittal, and the road was not done. ArcelorMittal's contribution for the road from Ganta to Saniqually was taken by the government in kickbacks. It was not done. The road was not done. It was this government who told ArcelorMittal that if you cannot give your contribution of the road, then you must pack up and leave this country. That's how that road started. Then you will come and sit here and say the paved road from Ganta to Saniqually. Mr. George Lobbo, you want to be on the right side of Joe Boakai if you will ever become president. Do not deceive the people this way, George Lobbo. You don't have to lie. You don't have to lie to gain power. No. We are saying concisely what we have done. The road from Ganta to Saclépie is ongoing. The road from Ganta to Saniqually is still ongoing. It's not completed yet. The road from Medina to Rabasport is ongoing. The road from Zredju to Fishtown, he said his government did it. No, that's not true. His government did the road from Fishtown to Harper, not Zredju to Fishtown. He doesn't know the corridor of the roads they did. You understand? We did the road all the way to the border with Africa Coast, between Maryland and Africa Coast. We did that. We are doing too many roads. We have done over 400 kilometers of road in this country just in 5 years. And before our 6 years will have ended, we would have done over 600 kilometers of road. You said during your time, you used to call it miles. Right now, the one in this country now is kilometer. So that's the kind of road. If you come to Monrovia, look, if I name the roads in Monrovia we have done, Doe Community, Looking Town, we have done the road from St. Michael Catholic School all the way to Patient Shop, from St. Michael Catholic School to Tusa Field, extending and connecting Bannersville Estate. That is what we have done. Go to rehab. Don't go to rehab where his standard bearer lives. He spent 12 years in power. They could not pave any community road in the rehab suburb. The president came, George Weah came, and all of the roads, not some, but all of the roads in rehab have been paved, either with asphalt or concrete.
Thank you. I want us to move forward. I know the road argument is never going to finish, but let's move to our next point, which is we want to look at people's records.
Mr. Jai, before we move on, I think it's good to clarify one thing.
I will give you a chance to clarify. You can wrap that up.
Okay,
we have a couple of things. We have a couple of things.
Before we go forward,
Mr. George, hold on. Mr. Lobbo, hold on. I mean, this road thing is never going to. Our viewers will also judge for us. So we're never going to completely exhaust all the arguments here. So let's move on.
Yeah, please let me respond. He was the first.
Let's go to the history and records of these individuals.
Before we get there, I got to make this point clear, Mr. Jai. Please, it's important for this conversation. let me say this again. You keep saying, I hear the minister say, all of these things are ongoing. All of these things are ongoing. Again, on the executive mansion website, Minister Sharif, the road from Harper to River G, the second phase commenced March 27, 2017. I'll give you the date. And when you go research it, it's supposed to be on the executive mansion website. The Fishtown Harper Road was completed by 2016. That corridor. I'm not getting it.
But you did not prove me wrong. I said you guys did the Fishtown Harper. Not Swedru Fishtown.
Dennis, before I say anything,
he said Swedru Fishtown.
I just sent you a picture. Can you post it with regards to the Kagata Road? Because this thing is not an argument. Look, again, I will say this. I will let the Liberian people judge. We know the CDC government. Dennis, I will agree with you. I believe there are other things we can talk about. But this is just to tell the Liberian people exactly what they have in power. This is a government, since they came to power, what we hear is our government is looking into doing, is going to do. Mr. Jai, you have to be able to fact check us. This is a national discussion. We cannot have a government official here just saying all of these things are ongoing, going to do. First thing I would have heard from the minister here is that my government entered into an agreement with this financing company, and we are about to command construction work on this. That is not the case here. Mr. Jai, we all know, how does a road agreement comes into effect? If a project commences on a road, what does that tell you? That funding hasn't been secured. So based on Minister Sharif's argument here today, Minister Sharif, I expect a lot from government officials. But I will say this, because I believe there are other things I still want to speak about. The Liberian people will judge for themselves the quality of the government they have.
There are really plenty of things to talk about. I want our listeners also to judge. One thing you said from Kagata to Bongma, is it paved or not paved?
Paved.
Mr. Sharif.
It is not paved. It is not paved. It is not paved.
When you say it's not paved, was no work was done on it?
The man said the thing was, it was paved, meaning it was paved with it was paved with asphalt. There's no quota on that road. That road is still to be done. The Bongman to Kagata, the Kagata to Bongman road is still to be done. It's not paved.
All right, let's move on to the history. I don't know. I've never been on the road. We always get these reports. This is complete. This road is done. But so I don't know for a fact which roads have quota or not. But let's go to the history and records of the two leaders, and that's where I want also spend a little bit of time. Also, before coming to this, before becoming president, Mr. Weah was the captain of the Lone Star. He was peace ambassador. He was senator, and he was the main opposition leader, and then now president. So before becoming president, what is the record of President Weah that really? Because sometimes people question. They say, "Oh, the man didn't have the requisite qualification, and that's why he's performing poorly." So tell me, let's go back into history before becoming president, senator, peace ambassador. What did President Weah accomplish in those roles? Mr. Sharif.
First of all, many Liberians who were here during the war know that George Weah, outside of the presidency, outside of the senatorial position, George Weah was the single most help to most Liberians around the world during our heydays. There is no Liberian in this country that contributed to the survival of other Liberians during the war like George Weah. That is undoubted and that is unarguable. And so we know he was a celebrity. He played football, but that's the background he comes from. Yeah, Dennis, that's the background he comes from, and he will never be ashamed of that background because that's what brought him fame. That's what brought him to prominence. And so, He used his wealth. He used his wealth when he was playing football to cater to the livelihood of other Liberians. When people like Boakai, JND, who wants to be president now, was here and did not have anything meaningful to contribute to the Liberian people. He was working in government. Boakai started working in government and started making, tens of thousands of United States dollars from Liberian taxpayers' money before George Weah. But George Weah started making money at the age of 18. At the age of 18, he started using his money on Liberians, both at home and abroad. That is that. During the apex of his footballing career, when he resigned, he came and entered Liberian politics. Oh yes, that set the stage where he is today. George Weah became senator. He started paying students WASP fees. Today, since he became president of this country, he has paid a WASP fees of over 200,000 students in this country. At least 40,000 minimum a year for 4 years now. For 4 years now, George Weah's administration has paid the WASP fees of over 200,000 Liberian students who have graduated from secondary school at the rate of 40,000 minimum a year. George Weah,
before you get to that, before you get to the presidency, talk about peace ambassador and senator.
Thank you. Okay, as a peace ambassador, as a UNICEF goodwill ambassador, right? He uses position, he uses influence, he uses affluence to disarm child soldiers when we had warring factions here who were killing our people. George Weah came down and used his position, his influence and affluence to disarm a lot of child soldiers in this country, for which we went out to the DDRR program. Okay, and as a peace ambassador, George Weah was able to work. Yes, he worked with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. George Weah said, I will be peace ambassador because this is a country I want to inherit from you, and I want to inherit a peaceful country. And so George Weah became peace ambassador, and one day he did not foment any trouble. He preserved the peace and security of the country through the government of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and the United Nations Peacekeeping Mission in Liberia together. All of us, George Weah presided over that office. At the end of his service, George Weah reported back to the Ministry of Internal Affairs. He reported back to the Ministry of Internal Affairs over 100,000 United States dollars that were given to his office to operate for operational funds. As a peace ambassador, he returned that money back to the government. Becoming president? Oh yes, like I said, since he became president, he has he has contributed to the White Feet. Yes.
Senator first.
Like I said, Senate, I've already dealt with. He spent 3 years in the Senate. George spent 3 years in the Senate, and he contributed immensely to the growth and development of that institution. And he worked with his colleagues, collaborated with his colleagues to pass several legislations today that are laws in Liberia. Gravitating to the presidency, George Weah, president for 5 years, he has done more. George Weah has done more than George Lobbo's Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in her first 5 years. In the first 5 years of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, there was nothing meaningful done here. George Weah has built housing units. George Weah has paid WASP fees for students. George Weah has been able to declare free tuition at all public universities and colleges across the country. And just recently in George Lobbo's county, Lofa, 379 students graduated from the Lofa Community College, the highest ever in the history of that county because of the free tuition policy at that college. And that is the same way it is with all other colleges, community colleges across the country. University of Liberia, enrollment has increased because of free tuition policy at that university.
Thank you. And George, before you start, you wanted to talk about these pictures that you sent me.
Yeah, Minister Sharif, that is a bomb man's role when we're under construction. Here's a pavement agreement. Look, Mr. Jai, I can't be providing facts to a minister of government who don't know what they even talk about. So let's just proceed. Let people know for themselves. I
You
will
were
not
talking
go
about
back
fact
and
when you
forth
sent
here.
that. We just wanted
I-
to throw it.
Mr.
think
Jad, that's not true.
I can send you
Mr. Jad,
more.
it is not true. It's a fallacy. That's not Bowman Road there. That's not true.
Minister
Oh,
That's
Sharif,
not
don't
true.
do
That's
this
not
to the
Bowman Road there.
government.
That's a
Minister,
misconception.
Minister
This one
Sharif,
that
don't do
says
this to the
the Kakata Bong Mines Road near completion in 2014. You say it's not true?
It's not true. But
All right.
2017, we ran campaign.
Minister
If that
Sharif,
road
don't
was
do
paved
this.
in 2014, no, I'm coming.
Minister Sharif,
Hold on,
If
Mr.
I was
Sharif.
trying
the
to speak
thing
though.
that road was paved in 2014, how come we went to run campaign there in 2017 and that road was dilapidated? It is not paved. If only 2014 picture is showing you, it is a lie. That road is not like that. Just Lobbo,
Thank
I mean,
you.
that's deception.
Thank you, Sharif. Thank you, Mr. Sharif. Mr. Lobo, let's go to the accomplishment of
So Dennis Jai, here's what I would say to you. It's quite
and when we talk about
interesting.
the accomplishment, we talk about as managing director of LPMC,
Yeah, but let me say
LPRC,
this.
and agriculture minister.
Mr. Jai, you know, as a student of public policy and public service, one thing I've learned is the best way a citizen can give back to his country is through public service. Minister Sharif, why it is true I may not question how you got the job or whether you're doing a good job, I want to say I have respect for public servants because in public service is where people come to give back to their country. They do not go there to make money. And I will recognize that. And some of the reason I will continue to be calm with you is because you're a public servant. That the other one will be left for the Liberian people to decide for themselves the type of public servant you are. But I want to thank you for your service to our country. Having said that, Mr. Jah, let me begin with the former vice president. After he left the University of Liberia, the former vice president would take up a job in Lobbo County, moving to Vanjama, where he will serve as a warehouse supervisor, of LPMC. After that, he will ascend to the position of managing director. Now, we all know that this is not even a hidden secret. Under his leadership as managing director of the LPMC, we saw for the very first time Liberian farmers' produce reach the shores of Europe. Not only that, under Ambassador Boakai's leadership, he also was involved in the establishment of one of the largest palm farms in Lobbo County, Minister Sharif, and for many other farmers across Liberia. And based on his performance at LPMC, he will leave that entity with a turnover over $50 million to the Liberian government. Minister Sharif, I don't know, but again, no one in this life gets promoted or move upward if they did not deliver. So again, Ambassador Boakai will serve as Minister of Agriculture, where he oversaw policy decisions during the days of some of the major agricultural successes in Liberia, whether it was from the seeding growing plant that was established in Nimba County, where seeds were provided for Liberian farmers, where there were investments made in the agriculture sector. It was under his leadership. For the 3 years he served as Minister of Agriculture, we can check the Liberian production and how well we did on policy, because as minister, that's one thing you do, implementing of policies. So Ambassador Boakai served as the Minister of Agriculture. And one thing I want us to record, this man has been a dedicated public servant, not only serving, but serve with distinction, serve with zero allegations of corruption on his record. We made that fine example of a public servant. Then he will serve as vice president for 12 years. You know, it's interesting. As vice president of the Republic of Liberia, Ambassador Boakai will perform his constitutional duties, Mr. Jah, where he will assist the president in resolving matters that the president brought to his attention, seeking his assistance as Article 51 of our Constitution makes it clear, the Vice President must advise the President, and which he did diligently. As Vice President, we all know former Vice President Boakai will travel around the world representing Liberia on many, many major state visits, ranging from China to Paris to the UK. Ambassador Boakai will address the United Nations General Assembly more than 2 different times. One of the greatest addresses that I record was the address of 2014, when thousands and thousands of Liberians were dying as a result of the deadly Ebola outbreak. The former Vice President will address the General Assembly in New York, and we head to the White House, where he held meeting with former U.S. President Barack Obama and current U.S. President Joe Biden, who was then Vice President. And as a result of those discussions, we managed to secure $25 million for the deployment of U.S. troops to Liberia. Mr. Jah, as a private citizen in and out of government, because of his passion for agriculture and giving back to his people, the former Vice President owns a 65 acres farm in Bapolu County. Not only that, Mr. Jah, even when the CDC government cannot pay his pension as he's duly entitled to, this former Vice President will purchase 1,200 acres of land in Tottenham, County, that he has made available for Liberian farmers, local farmers, to go there. He provides technical advice to them. They can grow any produce they want, sell it, and whatever they earn is for them. In his weak way, we all know public service is not where people go to make money. But through his little means, he has been able to give back through his Boakai's Foundation, through different programs. And in terms of impacting young people's life, Minister Sharif, former VP Boakai, is recorded as one of the former head of the YMCA, one noble institution in the Republic of Liberia, known for molding the minds of young people and bringing out decency in people. And that is what I will speak to. And now, if you want, I can speak to our government accomplishment over the 12 years, which I look forward to that part of the conversation as compared to their government. Because for him, I think it's about me. So I will speak.
Thank you. Thank you. This, I want us to, we made an agreement not to even get to 2 hours. So let's be very brief, get to the point.
I think we need to get to the government, because it will be the
right.
CDC,
right. That's why I want you to get to the point, at least 2 minutes, and then we can have chance for rebuttal. I want to deal with the current issue now. We have issue with the Sharif's internet, because we want to deal with the current, what is happening now. We just wanted to do a little bit in history, and you don't want to leave roads. So let's get to the current state. I know there are certain things you are not pleased with the Weah government. So I want you to tell us what is it that the current president is not doing well, and what Mr. Boakai will do differently.
Mr. Jah, the very first thing that will happen is that
all right. Hold on 1 minute. Let Mr. Sharif come back so we can get to this. So we can get to this piece. Mr. Sharif, this is the most important piece. We're only doing this drill just to set the stage for what we want to see what is going on now. So I'm giving Mr. Lobbo the chance now to tell me what he doesn't like about President Weah. What is he doing so bad, and what will Mr. Boakai do differently? And we can stay in that place for the rest of the debate. We want to talk about it now. Let me start with George. George, what's the problem you have with the Weah government?
So Dennis, few things. Here's why I have a problem with the CDC government. I listened to Minister Sharif earlier on, stating using wire fees as accomplishments. It is a pity. Even when the Human Rights reports recently states that enrollment across the country has decreased significantly. So I don't know what he's boasting of. Not only that, the president of the University of Liberia testified before the Liberian Senate that since the President Weah pronouncement of the free public tuition, that all public colleges and universities have been running at a deficit. Just imagine that. Having said that, Mr. Ja, yeah, there are a lot of things, and here are a few for me.
Right, that's where, let's go there.
When President Weah came to power, Mr. Ja, a registered nurse, depending on your location, was making nothing less than $275 US with 14,000 Liberian dollars. Now we have a minister here. I look forward to him telling us what it is today. Today, that very nurse make nothing more than $175 and 7,000 Liberian dollars and can barely get it on time. One of the most famous jokes that was shared recently, that the reason why Minister 12 was not comfortable at Phoebe Hospital, how could he have been treated by nurses who have not been paid for 3 months? Since the inception of the CDC government, Mr. Ja, hospitals, our health sector has declined. Hospitals are at the brink of collapse. Not only that, let's come to the economy. Since the inception of the CDC government, zero foreign direct investment has been attracted. No job created anywhere in the private sector. Since President Weah came to power on the international stage, he has not only diminished and reduced Liberia's image on the world stage, but he has brought us to a laughing stock. President Weah has disgraced our country. Our president will leave the country. For today marks 38 days, 39 days since President Weah abandoned Liberia. Today marks 39 days. Under President Weah's leadership, what we see is a gross display of mass looting of public resources. This is a government that has legalized corruption to the point that the U.S. government was so uncomfortable that it referred to that officials of the U.S. government will refer to the CDC government as a kleptocratic government. Look, Mr. Ja, look at this embarrassment. The Unity Party government will ensure that Liberia will restore its credibility and restore its image on the world stage. We managed to secure a $4.9 billion debt waiver by instituting serious economic reforms, by ensuring that our people's lives were better. President George Weah has reversed the gains we made. Today, we have records of 9 ambassadors writing the CDC government to return their money taken from their account. Under his watchful eyes, $16 billion of the country money will go missing. Under his watchful eyes, a basic census that an incoming government like the UP was able to conduct with our budget less than 100 million, Mr. Ja, in 2 years of our administration. We came to power in 2006. By 2008, we conducted census. President Weah, for the past 4 years and a half, has not been able to conduct a serious, constructive, comprehensive, credible census for the Liberian people. All we've seen is massive looting. We've seen reports from the LACC that has indicted the Minister of Agriculture, the entire leadership alleges, and several other government ministers. What the President Weah do nothing like he always does. We've seen the GSA report, which told us that the $25 million that was used in a map-up exercise, that the businesses that Minister 12 used in the map-up does not exist in Liberia. Yet President George Weah has refused to act. So, Mr. Ja, President George Weah has not only become an embarrassment to our country, but he is the greatest liability to have as the president. And I hope our minister will take this time to tell us what he has done from a governmental perspective and how it's impacted the people's life.
Thank you. We will come to what JMB will do differently, but I want Mr. Sharif to respond to that. Mr. Sharif, are you hearing me, sir? So you listed that the healthcare sector has declined, looking at even nurses' salary. That's a point in time, that's a case in point. FDI, you said 0 jobs in private sector. He has abandoned the country. There's a gross display of looting. You say he has legalized corruption. That the foreign America has referred to our country as a government, as a kleptocratic government. Basic census, as according to you, has not been able to be held, and reports from LACC, GSA, and all these reports, President Weah, even though they have indicted people, he has refused to act. So I will want for Mr. Sheriff to respond if the internet becomes stable. So while we wait for Mr. Sheriff to respond, build upon that now and tell us what will JNB do differently and how can we trust that?
So the very first thing, Mr. Jai, one of the fundamental problems that has affected Liberia's ability to grow and to improve the living standard of our people has been our failure to curtail corruption, has been our inability to ensure that public resources are properly managed, our inability to ensure that we are setting a realistic budget, one that is prioritized based on needs, not based on wasteful spending habits. So, what has Ambassador Boakai promised the Liberian people? To ensure that we know what we'll be inheriting from this type of notoriously corrupt government. As part of our 90 days plan, Mr. Jai, Ambassador Boakai is promising the Liberian people that there will be a comprehensive audit done on all government offices to ensure that no one, and I repeat, no one who looted state coffers will go unpunished. The issue of impunity will end after CDC. We can assure the Liberian people. But what do we intend to do, Mr. Jai? That is why we've outlined, we've put our entire vision for lifting Liberians out of poverty and job creation into a 5 letters word: arrest. And the reason why we came up with arrest is, Mr. Jai, we know that we'll be inheriting enormous amount of problems. But again, we can't promise Liberians every single day what we'll be doing. So we say, you know what? What will be some of the key areas that we'll be looking at to ensure that we can attract the type of investment we need? But as a government itself, we must first take the step forward. We have to set the basis to make other people to be encouraged. So as a government, what do we want to do? Mr. Jai, we are inputting over $200 million every year that we spend on rice, to import rice to the country. What have we said as part of our plan? We want to go to the agriculture sector. There's no one in the country with more experience, especially when it comes to the agriculture sector, than Ambassador Boakai. So what do we intend to do, Mr. Jai? We want to empower local farmers. We want to increase domestic productivity in Liberia. We want to enhance the capacity of our local farmers. One thing he is very clear was that the subsidies that we provide to importers, like this year, for example, the CDC government allotted $11 million to importers as subsidies for rice prices. Now, what we want to do, we're not going to battle importers. You want to bring rice, that's fine. What we are going to do is take away those subsidies from importers and give it to local Liberian farmers to build their capacity. Because you know what, Mr. Jai? We know that if we make the necessary investment in the agriculture sector, we are going to be able to create jobs. Jobs that do not require people to have 4-5 years degrees, jobs that do not require people to hold master's degrees to be able to work. And not only that, in this 21st century, with all the supply chain global challenges we've seen on the display, Mr. Jai, every serious nation that wants to move forward must have the ability first to be self-sufficient. Food security is paramount to the growth and success of our country. Look, just the other day, Mr. Jai, I shared an article with Anthony C., where it said Liberians are too hungry to go to school. If we are producing at that capacity, where we decrease the importation of rice, and we can be able to take the saving, because Dennis, think about it. If we are producing in Liberia, and we cut that by almost $100 to $130 million, that's savings that the government can look into, that we can reinvest into the healthcare sector, into the educational sector. But look at our plan, Mr. Jai. We also, despite of what the Unity Party government was able to accomplish in terms of road construction, we want to make sure that we can open up the country, because we believe that produce must be able to get to the markets. It's important. We don't want marketeers. For example, if Nimba wants to produce plantains, we want the people to be able to get their plantain, whether from Zorgo, from Kample, from Nangben, from Beding, to get it to wherever they want to get it. Mr. Jai, in this 21st century, what we need is realistic, practical ideas that is geared towards job creation. And that is why Ambassador Boakai has stated that he will do things differently. But another thing that is key is, first and foremost,
Mr. Lobbo, this job creation, tell me a little bit more about the job creation. Is it in agriculture alone, or where and how?
Dennis, we are not going to say it's just one sector. That is why we believe in the agriculture sector, most of the time in the Liberian context, when we speak of the agriculture sector, many Liberians only look at rice. But in the agriculture sector, we can look at cocoa, we can look at coffee, we can look at other tuber crops, for example. Let's assume we say, you know what, we want to take Grand Cayman and invest $25 million. We want Grand Cayman to have a comparative advantage in the Mano River Union of producing cassava. Mr. Jai, what can we do? We put up a factory in, let's say, whether it is in Tala, that I admire so much in Grand Cayman, or somewhere in Sinje in Grand Cayman. And this factory job will be to produce cassava flour. Now, what does that do? The factory will be putting out there, Mr. Jai, that jobs will be created. All right. The farm itself will have people employed. Now, when we speak of the agriculture sector, we are looking towards the productive sector of the agriculture sector. We want to be able to produce at a massive level. For example, now let's come to a county like Riverside County with all that beautiful landscape. And we say, you know what? We want to invest in coconut plantation in Riverside. We want to begin to produce coconut oil in Liberia. We want to produce coconut oil at the level where we can be able to export it. We want Liberia to have a comparative advantage in coconut oil production in West Africa, Mr. Jai. That is very expensive. So what do we need to do? We need to build a factory. Mr. Jai, our plan is geared towards the productive sector and value added to the finished goods, because that will also build our economic strength. The more we can export, that is how we allow our country to be able to attract the foreign currency we need to be able to support our own local currency. So when we speak of job, Mr. Jai, it's not only just the agriculture sector. We've also told you that part of our government plan moving forward, that we want to invest in education. Why? The jobs we intend to create, we have to make sure that people have the skill set to be able to occupy those jobs. For example, the United Nations told us that one of the reasons why most of its civilian staffs were not Liberians is because they argue that the Liberians did not have the skill set. That is why Ambassador Boakai is now contemplating in turning the BWI, the Booker Washington Institute in Kakata, to ensuring that there can be a serious IT component of it that will be able to train people, because in this 21st century, Dennis, you know, technology is everything. And we have to make those necessary investments now, because we can't create jobs in IT, then we have to go bring Ghanaians, Sierra Leoneans, or Congolese. So we have to make sure that. Now, let me end on something before you come in. Another thing that is key to us, Mr. Jai, where we believe we are going to be able to create tremendous amount of jobs, is the tourism sector. That is why it's part of our plan, because we believe Liberia have some of the most attractive locations in West Africa. For example, Robertsport. Robertsport is being reported to be among the top 10 places for surfing in the world. Imagine what it means, Mr. Jai, if we can invest into 5 new resorts with 200, anywhere from 150 to 2 bedrooms, suites in that place. Do you know how many jobs we're creating in the hospitality industry in Grand Cayman alone? Let's look at Maryland County, the beautiful harbor there, for example. If we were to put a resort in that area, let's look at the Kakata. So, Mr. Jai, we are going to be constructive, but not only that, we are going to be practical. So we intend to create jobs. So when we speak of the private sector, that is what we want to do. But one thing we plan to do, fiscal discipline will be the key of Ambassador Boakai's administration. We believe that we want to cut government. He has been very clear. We also feel now, Mr. Jai, that there are certain ministries we don't need right now. And consolidating government ministries is something that is key on his agenda. And we are going to do that, because if we can consolidate some of these ministries, it will be saving for the government. Those are funding we can be able to use to invest in low-income housing. One thing I am key about, and let me say this today, opening to Liberians, Joseph Newman Boakai will not be elected president. And with Liberian government of Boakai 6 years, do not invest anywhere from $20 to $50 million in new low-income housing communities across Liberia. It will never happen. Now, why?
Mr. Lobbo, from the way that you have described the CDC government and their accomplishment, it tells me that the country is bleeding. You say it's in the graveyard, right? So if the economy is this low, you said 0 jobs in the private sector, you know, our international image and all of those that you have listed, it means that we need to do something urgently, right? By the time you get all those agricultural farms, the factories, maybe you're talking about 3 to 5 years. In the short term, what can JNB do to turn things around, to turn around the economy and create a job that you're talking about?
Dennis, in the short term, what we have to do is, Dennis, if we cut wasteful spending in the government,
how?
I strongly believe. Now, let me tell you how. Dennis, we've seen the budget. Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, for example, during her time, the Ministry of State budget was 13.5 million. Since the inception of President George Weah, it has been above 17 million. This current budget year, President George Weah, the Ministry of State, got $21 million. What is it that George Weah is doing so much that Ellen was not doing? Ellen was traveling more than George Weah. Ellen was meeting more people than President Weah. President Weah don't go to work. So, Dennis, if we can say, you know what, realistically, should the president budget, the Ministry of State, be $21 million? No. What about 10 million? What about 12 million? Does the president need all these other allowances that are provided to him? And the good thing about it, we have a president who's committed. So let's take, for example, Dennis. Joseph Boakai comes to power in year one. Well, it speaks about setting realistic budget. And we say, you know what, the Ministry of State alone, Dennis Jah, if we cut that 21 million Ministry of State budget to 10 million, that is a saving of 11 million. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do you know what $11 million can do? $11 million, if we start out a potato farm in Nima County, do you know we can create jobs for more than 50% in Nima County with a saving from there? Do you know we can just take 1 million out of that 11 million and say, since we're going to open a potato farm in Nima, we are going to invest $1 million in low-income housing project in Nima? Do you know we'll be taking people from zinc rounds to new structure? Mr. Jah, let me come to another number you need to pay attention to. The Ministry of Finance budget was under 50 million when CDC came to power. This current budget, the Ministry of Finance budget, is $154 million. Think about it, for Christ in heaven's sake. Look, if we cut wasteful spending from the government, that is why but in the short term, Dennis.
But when you say cutting wasteful spending and reducing the budget line item, those are two different things. How would you?
Dennis.
Hold on. Because when there's wasteful spending that is in, let's say that in, what is the wasteful spending that is in the Presidential Affairs Ministry that you're going to cut? Or you are only simply saying, hey, you are getting 21 million this time, you're getting 10 million. Is that cutting wasteful spending?
No, Dennis, in terms of, that's why when I speak, if you want to, then we can take the budget and we look at line by line item. Dennis, let me give you a simple number, for example. When President George Weah came to power, the Unity Party government budget of Madam Sirleaf, 2017-2018, stationary, the government allocated 7,800 to stationary. President George Weah 2018-2019 budget, do you know how much was allocated to stationary? 15,800.
Right, and George, I get that. You are simply.
So when I say we'll cut wasteful spending, to me, that is wasteful spending. What is the justification by more than 100% increase? So when we take that money from there, now that is just one item I'm giving you.
Right,
so
it's just corruption, right? Because they are taking that money and putting it in their pocket. So it's just corruption. So when you say wasteful spending, I wanted to see that, okay, we are spending this amount on this particular thing. People, the line item alone is not spending. That's what I was trying to get at.
So Dennis, when I say we'll cut wasteful spending, right? That in itself, the allocation of the misapplication of public resources is an act of corruption. So so listen now. So for example, if we are able to say we take the Ministry of Finance budget, that is 150 million, and we are able to itemize it to ensure that we can properly have a realistic budget. That is why in my statement, you continue to hear me saying, we need to have a realistic budget, one that is prioritized based on need. Dennis, if you have 150 allotted to the Ministry of Finance, what is it being allotted to? Like if we look at the line items in the Ministry of Finance budget, and we say, no, this does not make sense, and we are able to save over $70 million. Do you know what we can do with $70 million saving from just the Ministry of Finance? That is money Boakai can use in his first year to begin to invest in agricultural programs in the short term. For example, the program that the rice project that stored in Lofa County after the death of Gaddafi, that project was around $35 million. Do you know if we take a saving of $70 million from the Ministry of Finance and we invest $30 million in Lofa, for example, to produce rice, do you know what that means? Do you know how many jobs we can create? That is the perspective we are going to be focused on, Mr. Jah. That is what I mean.
Right. And that wasteful spending, let's agree, call it wasteful spending is a result of corruption. So how?
Yeah, but that's what it's intended to do now.
Right. So how are you intending to plug those holes? Because the people that are stealing the money, I mean, they have all kinds of creative ways to do that. So how are you intending to plug the holes? So because the whole budget process is very long and tedious, and so how are you intending to plug those holes so that
Dennis,
they won't be able to steal the money?
Dennis, I have been able to sit down by myself and go over the Liberian government budget of 586 pages. It is not impossible. This is a government we are talking about. A president who is serious about the Liberian people business. I think he needs to be able to say, for example, let's just take the Ministry of Finance. If the Minister of Finance submit a budget for his ministry that is $150 million, I think the president should also be able to have a day. You don't have to go through everything. That he should be able to tell the Minister of Finance to come to the mansion and be able to break down his budget. Why is it necessary? And people must be able to defend their budgets. Because Dennis,
that's one aspect. That's one aspect. What other way can you
Dennis,
get money?
the other way you can be able to ensure that you cut wasteful spending is making sure that government changes some of its procurement laws, the way in which government purchase or acquire services. Because what happens is that, for example, we need policies in place that are rigid. If government get rid of there was a system there. I don't want to sit down and just be talking on top of my head, Mr. Jack.
I'm fine with that.
The most important thing here, Dennis, is first get the right people there. Have the right people with the right question, understanding to do the job. Like you have Minister Sherry here today, struggling to make the case for the government.
Oh man, the man are here. Don't talk about him.
Okay, no, but let's look at the central bank. Let me say something, Mr. Jai. Hold on, Mr. Jai. Let me show you something. Let's look at the central bank, for example, the institution responsible for monetary policy in the country. Can you state some of the monetary policies that have come out of the central bank? Right. Absolutely nothing. The central bank has a tool that is used to influence the economy, which is the exchange rate. What has the central bank done with the exchange rate? Today, access to capital in Liberia, the exchange rate is about 25%. What is it can the government do from a fiscal policy perspective, which is the Ministry of Finance? So
and what will a Boakai government do?
But that's what I'm telling you. So these are the things we have highlighted. We have seen, we know where the problems lies, Mr. John.
Yeah, because every time I talk about this,
so you want me to write letter and get you, Mr. John?
No, you just
I have articulated
all these things that you are talking about, Josh.
I have stated for you, Mr. John, step by step what we intend to do, where we intend to go. I have just outlined it for you. For example,
you just said the budget. You said, this man getting 10,000.
The budget is the most important tool the government has to its disposal.
Yeah, that's why I said after that, whatever.
That is why we have to take that seriously.
Here's the thing, Mr. Lobbo. So all the things that you have outlined, tell me where has Mr. Boakai demonstrated those things? Where has he demonstrated? For example,
let me help you again. Let me help you, Mr. Ja. When Ambassador Boakai was LPMC managing director, do you know that they used to take the coffee from up country, bring it to Monrovia to get it processed, and then the shell will be used will be sold for people to feed pigs, and they exported the trash as far as Holland. As managing director, do you know what he did? Ambassador Boakai said no. He took the machines from Monrovia and moved them to Banga and to Nima. What he did was, instead of taking the raw cocoa and coffee and drive it all the way to Monrovia, why not we process it up country and leave the trash there? And the trash was what the people were using for Tobagi. By doing that, do you know how much he saved LPMC? He saved them over $250,000.
Good.
So again, he has demonstrated that as a leader. Then you keep say, what is he?
Yeah, I mean, okay. So let's come to.
So that's fiscal discipline we're talking about, Mr. John.
All right, let's come to Mr. Boakai's 12 years in office, and let's talk about a time, if there's any, that he has taken some stand against corruption. I believe I don't have for a fact that there was corruption going on in his office, but within those 12 years, tell me anywhere where he has demonstrated of punishing people that are corrupt, punishing people maybe that are late coming to work, or doing anything unbecoming, or taking a stand that we know of during his 12 years. That
Mr.
you can.
As far as I'm concerned, in his 12 years as vice president, there has been no report of anyone underperforming. There has been no report of any corruption in his office. So again, I would not have expected him to act. But one thing I can show you, let me end on this note. One thing I can show you, as the political leader of the Unity Party, after the elections of 2017, he instructed that there be an audit conducted on our party 2017 campaign. And Mr. Jah, after the campaign, there were decisions made. Now, when it comes to his political party, for example, Ambassador Boakai has shown that when it was time for him to take decisions with regards to the CPP, he made a call and we went into the CPP. When there was a need again to rally his party and to lead his party, he made those decisions. So I would say this to you, Mr. Jah, as Minister of Agriculture, as LPMC Managing Director, as LPRC boss, I think his performances can speak for themselves. Even at YMCA, he has demonstrated all of that. So again, the fact that, for example, an employee has spent 25 years out of job, and when I say why the job didn't fire him, that means the employee was good.
Yeah, that's an assumption. But has he done any internal audit in his office as vice president or in his political party? Or
yeah, we did.
Has there been any internal audit done? I'm not talking about somebody else coming in, just internal audit. And has there been any report, financial report from his political party from the campaign, has demanded by the NEC rule? I want to see something. Show me.
Mr. Jah, one good thing the Unity Party did for you press people and information disseminators is that our government ensured that we made it easier for you people to ascertain and obtain information. That is why we made sure that we did not leave power without signing.
Information Act.
Let me finish, Mr. Jah. Yeah, Mr. Jah, your job is to ask a question.
Right.
Let me answer. So let me answer the question. Okay. Mr. Jah, let me answer the question. Whether the answer pleases you or does not fit your narrative, that's fine. At the end of the day, Mr. Jah, that's my answer. And that's you just asked the question, I answer. So let me answer the question again. Yeah. Mr. Jah, we made it very clear for you guys in the media to ascertain information. So I will say this to you. The National Elections Commission is a public entity. And I will ask you, you have correspondence in Liberia. You do a very good job in terms of your programming. I think you should reach out to the National Elections Commission, because no political party will contest an election if they do not meet the requirements as stipulated by law that must be met to contest. And in as much as we've done that, we were recently in an election where we feel a senatorial candidate. As far as I'm concerned, we met those financial requirements as stipulated by law. So if you want to prove that wrong, I will advise. There's a good thing that you can do investigative journalism, and we appreciate that when it's brought to the public. Having said that, as far as we are concerned, we've met the requirements, and that's
right. And I'm not asking about requirement. I'm talking about where has I wanted you to show me a demonstration of accountability, transparency from either his office as vice president or as standard bearer of the Unity Party. There's nothing out there for me to look at, and you are saying, I should go and ask. And I'm fine with that. Just tell me that there is none there for public consumption.
Again, Mr. Jah, one thing I will always do is to respect a man's right to his opinion and a man's ability.
No, I don't have an opinion yet. I'm only asking.
Mr. Jah, again, I stated to you, it is your right to say what you want to say, and I respect that.
I'm just asking.
Hold on now, Mr. Jah. Internal investigations, internal documents are meant for internal purposes. That is why the word internal is used. So as far as I'm concerned, public documents are public. In the Unity Party, government made sure that we made it a law that public documents or public information must be accessible and must be made public to you guys. What the Unity Party does internally is for the Unity Party internal affair. And I think that is fair enough for us to state that. And that is how I will answer that. We've done our own investigation. There have been a series of different investigations we've conducted, but that is why it is an institution. One of the characteristics of an institution, it is our ability to be able to show that we have mechanism in place that we can handle our own problems and solve our own disputes and handle our own problems if we have financial issues. And that is why I just stated for you, Mr. Jah, that after the 2017 elections, we did our own internal investigation. We did an audit.
Mr. Lobbo, I was not talking about investigation. I was not talking about investigation. People look at audit as something bad. Audit is just to see where you are, right?
But
So,
those are internal documentation. It is not
right.
a right that you should have it. It's internal investigation.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. Have there been any internal audit done? Just yes or no?
I said yes, Mr. Ja. I told you after the 2017 election, yes, we did. Absolutely.
Has there been any internal audit in the vice president office for 12 years?
Mr. Ja, as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't in the office of the vice president, and so I would not confirm or deny. But knowing who he is, the fact that the Liberian people and every other person, even the late Jerry John Ruler refers to him as Mr. Clean, I think there was no need because he showed that everything was done by the book. If there was a need for an audit, if there's no problem, if there's not, look, Mr. Josh, sometimes you just want to see.
You are in the financial era, Josh. Audit doesn't mean there's a problem.
Mr. Josh, why it is true. Why it is true. Mr. Josh, I understand where you're coming from. Again, I want to be very clear for the sake of this conversation. As far as I'm concerned, he does not just carry a decent public servant title just for its name's sake, but he has demonstrated that through his action, and that is my answer to that.
All right, let's wrap this up. Let me open my calls here. I know there were some people, one person on the call, but callers, we have 15 minutes to wrap this up. So call the number that's on the screen, 605-313-6004, 791-403. So let's conclude. I know we're talking about the city. Unfortunately, Mr. Sheriff couldn't continue due to internet issues. But I tried to call him on the WhatsApp number, but I'm not able to get him. So the problem.
Mr. Sheriff knew that he didn't come prepared. I hope he goes and prepared.
Wait, let me.
Dennis, let me tell you, I know focus on Liberia. You guys try so hard. You guys like, we need to find someone. I understand this, but it's like every time someone comes up here, it's like they come short, and I get it.
You're totally your own horn now, George. So let's talk about what is a current issue. You know, there are a lot of things happening. You have the Retire Suffering campaign. You have another rally, Retire Suffering rally. We have another rally by the LPP, to rescue the state, and all these different rallies. Where does the Unity Party and Mr. Boakai stand? And I will talk about the private jet too. What's the official news on this private jet thing? I saw the
as far as we are concerned, Mr. Ja, there are people who want to make an issue out of the jet. It is their right.
Was he actually flying a private jet, or that's Photoshop or something?
He was on the private jet. Yes, he did. The former vice president was in Nigeria. He traveled to meet with great business people in Nigeria. And as far as I'm concerned, based on the invitation, the means of transportation was being facilitated by his guest.
Who's the person? Do you know?
One Mr. Obina, if I pronounce his last name right, one Nigerian business tycoon, and so the former vice president. But again, I would just say, for the sake of this conversation, why it's true that people want to know. But given what I've been told and based on the conversation I've been fortunate to have with the former vice president, his trip in Abuja is going in Nigeria is going very well, and he will be returning to Liberia on Monday because he believes that he has to be home. That's what a statement must do. He will not be like President Weah to abandon the country and go without even caring about what the people are doing.
Let's talk about the protest. Retire.
The rally.
Yeah,
what I would say, Mr. Ja, as far as I'm concerned, I do not have problem. I respect all Liberians' right to freely express themselves. Right. I want to appreciate the CDC government, the Justice Minister for ensuring that, for approving their.
You support the rally? It looks like the Unity Party folks are undermining it. What's your?
We have nothing to undermine. As far as we are concerned, we know the overall objective of the rally. This is more of a political momentum rejuvenation rally than anything of substance. So again, we want to wish the ANC people all the best with
so
their
if
rally.
the supporter is going to give momentum to the CPP, so you're not going to support it. Is that what I'm hearing?
But that was the intentional goal. That's what it's about, because if it was in
and what's wrong with that?
Let me finish, Mr. Jai. You can't.
You don't have to finish.
No, but you give me a chance. Let me end my statement. Don't be cutting my workshop, because I know ANC people, the player will stop, they'll get to that point and go do a whole different post. So please make sure let me end. Even though they won't take the full context in which I spoke, that's fine. But let me just end on this. Mr. Jai, here's why we say things like that. If this was intended for the greater good of the country, from the genesis of this whole thing, the CPP would have called all other political actors in the country.
I mean, if the cause is if people are actually suffering, do you need a meeting for that? If the people,
but you don't need a meeting, then go ahead. Then why you want other people now?
All right,
I don't know how you make the argument. You don't need to other people. You don't need to collaborate. Then you want them to be part of. I don't know. It doesn't. We can't put Unity Party partisans in the street and don't understand why they get in the street, Mr. Ja. We can't do that. So if you want to support people in the street, we have to know from the start of it. We want to know why. And
let's open the call line.
With two people are suffering. But what we are not going to do is to jump in the midst of some momentum boost political rally, intending to relive or rejuvenate a dead campaign that has invested so much money over the last 5 years and still does not seem to be waking up. We're not just going to jump out of that. We want to be very clear. And we want to call on Liberians to understand that if this thing was intended for good faith, they would have said from the beginning, we open a meeting for all Liberians, political leaders, civil society organization. We want to send a message to the government. That was not done. You finalize everything. Now that you see you don't have it, then you want to make other people know that say, no, we support your right to go assemble. And that is what I call it.
Thank you. Let me bring on our callers. We have many callers here. The first is who's been here the longest. That's Elvis Morris. Elvis, go ahead. You're live. Quickly, a minute.
Thank you, Mr. John. And I want to applaud George Lobbo. I think he always does a good job articulating his party, plans and position on the issues. I just want to give him a little bit of advice. He's my big brother.
You want advice campaigns now?
No, not on campaign, but just his mannerisms on the platform. He can be abrasive when he comes on the platform. He's always, going at you. It's a bit unsettling. So, George, I think in the future,
I'll bring your advice, Chief. So now they guys are focused on
Let me get to this whole JMB thing. Since 2018, we've been watching this platform. We hear George Lobbo talking about rules. Rules that people will eat in Liberia. They're not worried about rules. Second of all, what about the maintenance of the rules? A lot of rules is built and then after a couple of years it's dilapidated. So we're not looking at rules, in terms of, the development or the achievement of your government, because those could be eroded over time. But, my last point to this whole issue is that it's a big embarrassment for the government official. Came on the show for about 15-20 minutes. He couldn't even keep a stable internet connection. You have to get off the line. But George, I think they should have brought you for that arrest thing that they were doing with the whole plan, because I think you would have done a better job articulating it. But for me, if JMB was 20 years younger, I would have voted.
What is he referring to, Mr. John?
But age is a factor. It's a factor in this election.
Don't do this age thing, man. Let's talk about the issue.
What are they, Mr. John? He said they should have brought me for this arrest.
No, we on Thursday we brought in Unity Party supporters to discuss arrest. George, you are aware you didn't come.
Yeah, but you Dennis, where I stand with regards to my schedule recently. I told you guys, that.
All right, let's leave that. Let's leave that. Let me take the next caller. Call out your name and where you calling from.
All right, this one, Elvis.
Go ahead, call up your name, please.
My name is Jackson calling from Minnesota.
Go ahead, Jackson. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I just want to help George Lobbo. I hear you asking a question about whether Joseph Boakai have been audited before. I just want to give some fact about Joseph Boakai. I can remember when I was in Liberia, I used to work at Ministry of Finance. I was trying to get some scholarship to go get my master. So I decided to apply to NOCAM. And then I was vetted, but later I didn't get a scholarship. So unfortunately, unsurprisingly to me, that was a guy who was deputy to Chris Neal What he did was he had his son getting up a scholarship to go to get his master. So unfortunately, Joseph Boakai heard about it and then called him and said, "Oh, Joseph, somebody from my deputy, where I'm paying over $16,000, put his son on this application." So Boakai said, "What? He means already been paid a lot of money like that. Why should you allow his son to get on it?" So it's like they were just discussing something. So he brought that discussion in front of Boakai. Boakai said, "What? If I were me, I'll fire him straight. I'm going to fire him because he's been paid a lot of money dating for people who can't afford, or children who don't privilege, so they can get a scholarship. Why should we get this scholarship?" He said, "Fire him. You should not put your name there." So there's the type of person who is Joseph Boakai. He's a very straightforward man. Very straightforward. So when
Jackson, he said he's supposed to fire him, but he said who he fired in your own office? He said somebody to fire someone. So give me an example.
That was because there was no such a thing.
Nobody did something wrong.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Let me take another caller. George, let me ask my question, my man. Let's go to our next caller here. Alexander Walker. No, not Alexander. That will be a wireless caller 605 area code because it's been here 9 minutes. Caller your name and where you calling from.
Hello, brother. My name is King, and I'm calling from Sioux, South Dakota.
Welcome, King. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the show, brother. It is so. Let me start with the minister. It is so sinful and disgraceful that President George Weah appointed somebody as minister, and the person appear on a platform that cannot defend him. I don't understand. Right now, if I'm working with George Lobbo, he employ me, or George Lobbo employ me in his office, the first thing I want to do is I will read on George Lobbo and know George Lobbo's accomplishment and know what George Lobbo is capable of doing, so that tomorrow if anybody comes from the contrary and like trying to discuss George Lobbo, I must sit down and defend George Lobbo of the character and who he is. But if President Weah, minister, cannot defend him in the public or on the social media, then I don't understand. Secondly, the minister is not informed. So, like I was saying, if you are informed, you'll be able to know the issue or to address the issue. So let the minister go back and go read on George Weah, on his president. Let him go do a research on his president. If you be able to come back and defend his president, that's fine. If he not, then he will not come back on the media.
The media for you?
My media for you? Yes.
Let me thank you so much. Let me bring another caller.
You get it too fast. Are you cool?
Dr. Kula. Dr. Batum Kula, you're live.
Gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. When you guys have these kinds of debates, and one side is saying the other is lying, apart from the articles that George Lobbo sent, I think, you have a journalist in Liberia. You could just cut the thing short and say, you know what? We will send our journalists out to go and confirm this through either live video or just confirm it for us to know whether indeed this road has been constructed or not. What I notice about the CDC government is that they lie a lot. Everything about them is propaganda. They've been telling Weah for the longest time, don't say anything, just keep quiet, it's full. Won't you anyway, they love you. And that's what continues throughout today. So nobody should be surprised that Weah doesn't talk. Number one. Number two, this $100,000 that Lobbo said is the finance budget, and also the 22 million.
150 million.
These are unnecessary amounts of money being budgeted for these guys to steal. It's just broad day corruption and broad day stealing. This needs to stop. And the last thing I'll say, the way you see the world, remember this, guys, the way you see the world is the way you are. If every time somebody's telling you, oh, the person's jealous of Weah, the person hates Weah, the person hates this, and never want to deal with the issues that are being raised about the fact that there's so much incompetence in the government, there's so much mediocrity, there's so much underachievers that are in positions of power, and they always talk about envy and hate. That's how they see the world. They only see it through the eyes of envy and hate. They don't see it through actual work, actual doing things that matter. And that's the problem we have in Liberia right now. We have a lot of mediocre, underachievers, young kids running government because why? They were outspoken for Weah, and they worked with Weah during the days of the CEC. That's all we have right now. We don't have a competent government. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Let's take thank you. Let's take Alexander Walker, and after Alexander will be John Maulo.
Hello?
Hello. Yeah, your name and where you calling from?
Eddie from Virginia.
Go ahead, Alex.
Okay, I want to say something here. I appreciate your show. I think you're one of the most fair and balanced person that I try to listen to. Just as other caller has said, you know, the issue with having a police form person representing the whole government is embarrassing. Even if they now fail, you just now call and to get all that because we know what you're talking.
Don't make George think.
No, I'm being very straight to the point. I remember APC. Let me just clarify with you. I know what I'm talking.
Okay, go ahead.
That road issue, that one really pissed me off to call. I drove on Burma Road to go beyond Burma to my land. You know, for someone who is an appointed party confirmed by the Senate to come on this kind of broad media and say Burma Road is not paid, if I had the firing and hiring power, that man would not have a job tomorrow. Because he disgraced the government, he's an embarrassment to the government, and there should be no reason someone like that to even take the podium to even talk about issues like that. Because he's not informed. And secondly, I think yesterday or a few days ago, I listened to this confused, embarrassed, poorly written Senate judges trying to question about the Boakai plea right in Nigeria. You know, it's sad that, you know, people would distract from the real issue and try to argue on a plea that was paid for by private dollars and try to compare it to a plea that was paid for by public dollars. It makes no sense. Let me be very honest with you. And it's sad that people on different platforms will sit down and allow we kind of, I would use different words, but he kind of starts to go on with all putting these people in check. I mean, Samuel Jackson is a completely barrier to the lower education he has. I was to your show to go after him. I'm sorry about that. But it pains me to see someone who claims to have such lower education sit down and talk below the belt. And forgetting a real issue that people are facing. You know how much pressure on from us here? You know how much school fees from all got to pay?
Thank you.
I mean, a better Liberia is better for every one of us. That's what we see.
Thank you.
Party line, no party line, we all will put Liberia first. It's Liberia we all want. As much as I remember the NPD, and I will not leave the NPD for no reason, but Liberia comes first. And it is Liberia we are looking at in 2023. We're not looking at individuals.
Thank you. Thank you. And George, I think this whole private jet issue is people are afraid of quid pro quo, that hey, these people that are putting the paper in the these people that are putting Mr. Boakai in the plane now, I wonder what what their motive, and are they going to expect something in return when Mr. Boakai becomes president? But let me take my last caller here, and that's Mr. John Mawolo. John?
Yeah, how you doing, Dennis?
I'm good.
How you doing, George?
I'm doing great, sir.
Let me deal with the minister first. You know, when you tell these people about George Weah's accomplishment, the first thing they can't, he paid wire fee. He paid wire fee with what? His own money? You know, if the people don't have George, how you expect them to take the wire? The government has to pay. So the government pay. And why is that his accomplishment? You know, they talk about roads that he never broke ground for. That means it was already in the pipeline. If he does it, that's government doing. That's you and my taxpayer money. What is he doing? What's the new policy that he brought? What's the new negotiation that he brought to bring those roads and whatever else they're doing? You know, we got to be smarter than this. If we're talking about the future of our country, we gotta be ready to make the research. If we want to come and discuss it, then let's do the work. Let's do the work of really finding out what's going on, instead of just everybody just coming and just putting nonsense out there in the air. You know? Okay, we know what the CDC is about. You know, their president stay outside 39 days already, and they're still finding excuses for him. You know, and there are talks that he may even extend that. But let's see what happens. Now, to my little brother there, George Lobbo. Let me tell you something about this LPMC business.
John, let even though it's maybe a compliment, but let's keep away from saying little brother or little.
Let him speak. African, the oldest is the older. Let him speak.
To Mr. Lobbo.
You're right.
To Mr. Lobbo.
Yes, sir.
Let me say something about this LPMC business.
Go ahead.
Nothing personal against Ambassador Boakai. Ambassador Boakai is like family to me, okay? I knew this man when he was, before he went to LPMC. So, when he was resident manager for LPMC in Lofa.
Yeah.
And he stayed there until the coup in 1980. To come and take credit for what LPMC were doing, LPMC was more progressive before 1980 than any time in the history of LPMC. LPMC was one of the richest corporations in Liberia before the coup. But for the 2 years that Joseph Boakai was managing director, nothing was happening at LPMC. That was right after the war. It took Liberia almost 3 years after the coup for Liberia to stabilize. Almost 3 years. So to come and say there was some progression going on in LPMC, nothing like that happened. And I'm saying they say, I was living, I know. Okay? So then you go to, when we're talking about the Mr. Boakai, let's talk about the policies that he implemented, because all of these jobs that they keep talking about, he didn't get it because he contested. He didn't even get it out of merit. He got it out of connections. Yeah. So let's talk about the policies he implemented when he was there.
Thank you,
Not that he did this and he did that and he did the other. I know the man. So, and what we're saying, not that we don't like the old man, but we're saying that at this point in time in Liberia, he's not capable of handling the country. That's all we're saying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. George?
Thank you.
You know the callers talk on several things. We want to close.
Yeah, but we just it was not far except for the last caller. Most of the callers spoke on everything they said. They right. Some people give advice. Let me say this, Dennis. Like I've always said before, I respect every single caller. I want to thank you for the views you express. To my brother Elvis Morris, so I'm not. I know sometimes you think that I'm being aggressive. But sometimes Dennis and he may be trying to just get me out of character. Don't mind them. Having said that, I keep my composure a lot. Morris also spoke about the roads that we are paving, but the issue of maintenance. Morris, that's true, is important. And one of the things Ambassador Boakai spoke about, especially when it comes to roads, he said that back in the days, they used to have engineers stationed in every county. That was one of the reasons why back in the days, the roads were not quota, but the roads were in good condition for people to be on. So those same things can be done. Now, what we can do is that if we can train Liberian engineers so that these roads that are constructed, and we can make sure that the component part of the agreement is given to Liberian engineers, that way the Public Works Ministry will have a contingent of Liberian engineers who can work on the road maintenance. Like the road from Aurelia to Ganta, there's a 10 years maintenance agreement with Chico. That is why those of you who've been to Liberia, sometimes in the morning you will see Chico cars will be driving on that road. You'll see the engineers stop, they're looking at that road. That is the agreement. There's a 10 years maintenance part of that agreement. So, but I do agree with you. So some of the other callers who spoke about the minister, again, I will now speak to the minister. President George Weah appoints. They work at the will and pleasure of the president. It is his prerogative to build a team, one that is reflective of his vision and his values. And I think the ministers that he has appointed are the ministers that represent him and what he stands for and who he is. With that being said, once someone serves in public service, we have respect for them. That is how I will put that there. To the last caller, I like how you ended it. You spoke of nothing was done, and you said he went there 2 years. I don't know, maybe if you know him, Ambassador Boakai was at LPMC 9 years, total that he stayed at LPMC 9 years. But I like how you ended it. I think it's easier. You made it very clear when you said, right now he's not a man to lead Liberia. You have your reasons, and that means you must have your candidate, but that's normal. So I don't expect that. But there are people today who, when you speak to them, that tells you that during the days of Boakai, the palm farm was established in Lofa, and there are so many things that were done. So again, it is a debate. That's fine. I'm not going to go back and forth. Those who know him will tell. Having said that, Mr. Jai, I want to say to the other caller, the bottom said, bottom, just to agree with you. Look, Dennis Jai Dennis Jai can do it, but I think the minister was just disingenuous. There's no argument on that road. Dennis road is paved because Spoon has done a lot of live video. Emmanuel Cotto has gone to bomb mines multiple times. This is not an argument. The thing about CDC government officials is that the guys did not even take time to read their own propaganda.
Thank you.
How can they defend anything the government? The guys don't know what they inherited. That is why President Weah, this State of the Union address, he was saying he inherited $879 million debt. The next one he said $900 million. The other day he would say under $900 million. Because again, I think what they should do when they want to come out, they should read and before they come to this platform.
Thank you. This at 3 o'clock on top of the hour, we'll have the FOL marketplace. So tune in to Focus on Liberia for the FOL marketplace. That's where we talk business, finance, and economics. You don't want to miss it. Then at 7, former TRC Commissioner Marcel Miller Washington will be here with me, so we can talk about Victor Boud. That's the merchant of death, the guy who sold arms to the NPFL, to Charles Taylor and the NPFL, killing so many Liberians. He's free. He's being convicted but now he's free in a U.S.-Russian prisoner swap. What does that mean for Liberia and our search for justice? Tune in at 7 p.m. tonight. Also tomorrow, Ambassador Louis Garcia Brown will be here to talk about the December 17th We Tire Suffering rally. We want you to be here as the political bulldog and myself quiz the leader of Team Cummings 2023. You sure don't want to miss it. George, I want us to conclude. Thank you so much for coming. I'm sorry that the internet couldn't hold, but I want you to conclude just under 2 minutes what you believe is wrong with the Weah government that shouldn't be re-elected, and why you think Liberians, including my uncle in Dodwicken, should elect Joseph Newman Boakai. What is he going to do?
So let me say this very clear to you, Liberians, as I conclude today. About little under 6 years ago, you entrusted your lives, your future into the hands of an unprepared, unprofessional, unethical man who you believe had the country at heart. Sadly for you today, you now know that this man has demonstrated absolutely nothing that exhibits love or that resembles love. Many of you are left wondering where your next meal will come from. Some of you have lost your jobs. Some of you have been reduced to beggars only because of President Weah's inability to create an enabling environment, one that will attract the requisite investments needed to create the type of jobs that will be able to absorb some of you. Some of you were small business owners, but today you can no longer maintain that business because the business began to take care of itself to the point that you just had to close it down. Those are the consequences of the decisions you made. President George Weah has told you he's a celebrity, he's a star. There's a reason why people let the stars to be the stars. There's a reason why the Ghanaians will not take Shatta Wallace and make him president. There's a reason why the Ghanaians will not take JJ Okocha and make the Nigerians will not take JJ Okocha and make him president. There's an understanding. Or the Senegalese will not elect Elhadji Diouf as president. They are stars. Their upbringing, their discipline is completely different. The office of the presidency, it requires stability, decency, integrity, moral values, and great thinking. Lots of dedication. President George Weah does not fit any of those criteria. But he likes the enjoyment and the benefit that comes with the job. Folks, we have a choice come 2023. We have a decent statesman, one who has been tested, who has a proven record of 0 allegations of corruption, one who has shown to the world, one who the late Jerry John Rowland referred to as Mr. Clean, a man who has represented our country, one who has demonstrated that he has an understanding of the everyday Liberian man's struggle, a young man who left West Songa to come to Monrovia to seek greener pasture, a young man who will have to work at the school of the elites, selling uniform, being a janitor to acquire the education. This young man has given up everything for the country. Today, that man is one of the most decent and finest public servant we can boast of. And he is Ambassador Joseph Humble Experience Newman Boakai. In him, I believe. In this man, I strongly, with his vision and what he plans to do, understanding his passion and feeling for everyday struggling Liberians. I say to you, this is not a gamble you will lose. This is not a bet you will lose. If you make this bet, you will definitely win. This is why we must reject President Weah. Today marks 39 days since he abandoned you and your children, since he left the country out on taxpayers' money, enjoying himself. You deserve better. You deserve to be treated as human being. We're not saying that he should build for all New York, but what we are asking him to do is to at least take the job he took an oath for seriously. Sadly for us, he has no understanding of the job. Sometimes I ask myself if he ever read his job description. But again, that is up to you to decide. He has proven not to have the ability to make decisions. And I hope you people make the decision for him. You people show him come October 2023. That President Weah, when the audit report came, you failed to act, I will vote, I will act for you. President Weah, when the map-up exercise proved that the people stole our money, you failed to act, we'll act for you. I want to say thanks to all of you for your time, to the callers, to those of you who took up time from your basic schedule to be here with us. I want to thank all of you. Mr. Ja, I know sometimes it get heated, but that is one thing about focus on Liberia. And you know that I campaign always that if you want to debate me, then let's go to focus on Liberia. You know that I have tremendous amount of respect for you and Anthony C. and what you guys do. I have disagreement with some of the things you guys argue about, but I have respect for your views and I respect you people as professionals. You guys do your very good due diligence when it comes to the issues. And that is why Samuel Jackson will not come here like the caller who says Samuel Jackson was on Spoon. Yes, Spoon is where everybody go to say anything they want to say. because Spoon is not based on substance. The summer doesn't bear on focus on Liberia, but he knows he will not have the good time he has on Spoon when he comes to focus on Liberia. I want to thank you, Mr. Jai, for what you guys do for Liberia and for our people. Continue it. Again, like I said, this place is my home. I'm always looking forward to these conversations. To Minister Shaka Sharif, I want to thank you as well for taking up your time, for mustering the courage to even be brave to say you were going to come here to have a debate. But sometimes I understand. Some of you are in the government, but you don't know what is happening in the government. These are the opportunities you people really use to know what is regularly happening. And it's sad that you came here, and I expected you to have done some research. But the next time you're going to appear again as a government official, don't come here with opinions like that. Have some facts with you. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless Liberia.
Thank you, Josh, and thanks to our viewers, those watching now, and even those who will watch later. Always focus on Liberia is your home, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, we end with our song that says, no matter which side of the political persuasion you're on, we are all Liberians. Have a good day. Enjoy your weekend.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.